Alright, welcome drifters. Today's run is going to be a bit different. First of all, because of the commentary. I decided to deal it with the commentary because I'm going to do a suggested build. Josh, what was the name? Josh McDonald from the comment section suggested I did another thermal lance charged mines, and because I've done this so many times over now, especially the architect version, I thought I'll do it with the commentary this time. And I don't think I have a version with the Spectre of this build, so I'll go for that one. Right on the start, this build has been requested by the Deflaginate cult, to which Josh McDonald is the official representative. If you don't know about it, the Deflaginate Mega Super Mod is acquired by taking Terminate and Deflagration, and upon taking those two you gain the blessing of the Deflaginate cult and the imaginary Deflaginate mod. Now, shield choice. You can get any sort of shield, because eventually we are getting to shielded constructs and later on apex machinery, which is always good for mine builds. But the bastion specifically is the most efficient choice you can get, because the bastion unlocks the priority 03. From the priority 03 we need the support specialist mod, because it gives a huge boost to the mine. If you don't know, in order to unlock the priority 03 you need to have an advanced construct already unlocked. The only advanced constructs are the turret, the ally and the bastion. Obviously we're not planning on getting neither turrets nor allies, at least not until the very late game. So the bastion shield serves this specific and only purpose for the build. Naturally, the easiest way to increase your offensive abilities in the early game is through charge shot. So the quicker you get to it, the easier stuff gets. Pretty much charge shot is more than enough in itself to be able to deal with the station later on, so you can focus on any other mods in the meanwhile. Because the station on annihilation difficulty is such a filter, should I say, for most builds, unless you focus down one specific thing. Usually the case is you focus completely on your offensive abilities until the station, and then you can diversify your build mode. But the thermal lance is very powerful even without any extra mods. Self-destruction we are going to need eventually. So my plan currently is, once I establish the mine properly, to maybe get Celestial Surge as an addition to our offensive abilities, but we'll see how it goes. In comparison, the architect version of the build can easily increase the firepower later on. Mine specialist, perfect, extremely good if you get this one early on. I was going to say, in comparison, the architect version of the build can pretty much straightforward and easily increase the power later on just by getting more evolutionary niches, which increase the overall mine effect significantly. And of course the other option being double taps to increase the fire rate. However, the Spectre can only utilize the fire rate mods to increase the mine potency, which means basically in the late game double taps. Though the Spectre has the added opportunity of using overseer, so pursuit drones and turrets become very viable options in the late game, provided you are able to get to it. I'm not sure how well the build is going to stand out in the late game. I guess Leaf of the Wind is going to be on most of the time on full potential, should I say, and that could potentially help. Now this is the priority 0 trio that I talked about. What we need from it, the support specialists, 25% constant rate of fire, which is equal to roughly 3.5 worth rate of fire gained from double tap, and the constant assembly speed, self-explanatory. Priority 0 and tactical link, both of those are like wasted level points in the late game, but because support specialist is so powerful, I think it really makes up for it. However, if you obtain both priority 0 and tactical link as early as you can, before getting overseer or shielded constructs, these two benefit greatly the bastion, so you will gain extra value of those two mods if you pick them early in the build. Next thing, power inversion. Basically anything that increases the blast radius is great for the thermal ones, but power inversion specifically is very good for the mine version of the build, because it just pulls enemies towards the mine, keeping them at bay. Not sure exactly if it's that effective for non-architect versions of the build, because the actual mine won't get nearly as thick. The actual lances that go from the mine won't get nearly as thick. Before I get back to the game, I will say sometimes it's worthwhile going earlier into a singularity in effort to save some XP that could be potentially lost. Complete silence in efforts to avoid embarrassing early end to the run. A good tip for the station on annihilation difficulties: always focus down the myrmidons in their order of appearance. Don't try to wobble around in between the different myrmidons on the screen, cause you're just inviting yourself to a greater risk of chaos. Oh, the actual cherub screen wrap. I don't think I've seen them do this. Especially not the scripted ones, because the scripted ones always try to stay away from you. Interesting. Alright, I would recommend refraining yourself from taking shielded constructs before you get what was it, absorption, because that will leave you much more exposed. However, I don't want to waste any rerolls, unnecessary rerolls, so I'm just going to get the shielded constructs now. You can't skip Revelation. Ever. The sooner you get Revelation, not only do you expose yourself to a better chance of stacking a wild mod that you actually want, but because Revelation is a rare wild mod, you essentially banish or like remove it from the rare wild mods pool, which means you are more likely to find other rare wild mods, such as this one, but we don't need it. However, 25% hull crash damage resistance is quite nice. I'm not sure whether I'm going to need to get like apotheosis later on. Definitely should help. Yeah, I don't want to crash anything. I'll get apotheosis later on, if possible. Whenever there's one of those, should I say trains of hammerheads formations, always try to aim for the weakest one. Not the elites, not the champions, always try to kill a weak one as soon as possible, which is going to trigger the destruction of the whole wave, most likely. As you can see, just taking support specialists. Hold that thought. Mastery. What we really benefit from? Weapon damage, not. Velocity, no. Projectile size, nah. The projectile size only affects the sparks. I think projectile spread, same. 5% blast radius, 5% rate of fire is all we really gain from mastery, which isn't that much, so just leave it as an extension for the late game. See, high explosive provides 20% blast radius, which is almost double the effective effect we get from mastery. Overseer. I still haven't acquired charge mines. Yeah, why not? Apex machinery. 75% longer construct assembly, however 30% rate of fire and mine effect. There it is. I'll just get it now. Oh, one chunky Spectre. So we come to a total of 8. Once we acquire charge mines, it gives the penalty of -1 total mine. So have that in mind. If you take charged mines without overseer and without mine specialist, you're only going to have 2 mines at base. And if you take charge mine, because of the penalty of charge mine, you're going to have one mine limit, which isn't a big deal, but the big deal is that when you got just one of a given construct, the assembly time of the next one only begins once the first one has been destroyed. For example, you deploy a mine, and once the mine is triggered and destroyed, only then will the next mine start assembly, which means you are not able to spam the mines. This is why taking an early mine specialist is very useful for this particular effect. Obviously, Overseer solves this issue. What I'm trying to say essentially is, if you acquire charged mines after Overseer or Mine Specialist, is the most effective way to deal. Oh wait, I was talking about Support Specialist, but I haven't taken it still. If someone was paying good attention to what I'm actually saying, you'll be like, yeah, you tricky sneaky guy. We would want to work our way to strafe eventually, because for those of you who don't know, once you acquire strafe on the Spectre, you are able to strafe around, to move around just by strafing, and strafing doesn't disable your stealth, so you can essentially keep your stealth almost permanently. Charge mines acquired. What else do we need? We need singular strike. I need singular strike and burnout reactors, definitely. It's rare that you use both burnout reactors and Apex machinery in the same run, but in the case of charged mines, it's almost always better to have both of them, because burnout reactors not only boost the effects, the rate of fire of the mine, but also halfway negates the penalty of Apex machinery. I mean, I'm talking about the assembly time penalty. Force armor versus rupture. You got plenty of defense, so offense. So I'll get the force armor first. And really, 10 hull damage resistance is all we are going to get in the long run from this mod, because eventually apotheosis will come around and all the crush damage or benefits will be lost. So, because I took streamline, that means I'm not going to be able to do the conversion with the Bastion shield unless I spend some points reducing its total values. We'll see, that's like a very late game extension. Yeah, so I'll not bother taking efficiency for the sake of conversion unless I'm certain I am able to go beyond. Blink. Why not? I oftentimes forget that you can use blink offensively in a way. If you blink on top of falls, I forgot to attack. Just a sec. I was going to say, I oftentimes forget to use blink offensively. That in the sense that when you blink, you push around the surrounding enemies and projectiles, I think, in the area. So that means you can escape, potentially escape some threats this way. Like if I blink on top of those, you destroy them instantly. And this placement upgrades this damage from 100 to 400, which on crash builds is quite significant actually. Wave 80 shouldn't be a problem. Is it ever a problem? Now in this case I'll quickly go into the singularity to avoid sucking in the next wave, which is going to make me just lose the potential experience gained from it. Obsession, we definitely won't. How can you not? There's really no penalty on getting obsession, because we don't want to stack that many mods besides double taps and defiances. And if you manage to stack enough defiances, you can even potentially make a good use out of the Celestial Surge. An interesting interaction is volley and fusilade with the thermal ones, because all the penalties applied from volley and from fusilade only apply to the projectiles and not the actual thermal ones. So the minus blast radius and projectile size that both of those mods give you are only applied to the sparks and not the ones. So that means you can do a very powerful, you can have a very powerful siege weaponry built with the thermal ones with that in mind. The engineer is opposed to the Spectre. He has the added benefit obviously of more constructs due to its natural ability, but its other passive where your assembly speed is increased for each unassembled construct. It is kind of nice when the hammerheads don't attack you. Yeah, let's just get this singular strike. One thing I always found extremely frustrating is what does it take to make the mine orbit around or just remain stationary. I used to think it's just because of my own velocity as I'm drifting, but that's not the case, and I'll just show you now. I'm not moving at all. The next mine I spawn in, rotating. Next, stationary. What does actually affect? Is it your own rotation or not sure? Let's see what else. I mean, why not? It doesn't hurt, so you don't get that much of a benefit. Double tap stack would probably be better. Oh, I still haven't acquired Leaf on the Wind either. Leaf on the Wind. I got both required mods, so it's just a matter of time. So you can blink on top of it and destroy it like so. That would have been actually interesting if there was some way to increase the blink damage besides displacement. Or its pushover effect, or what was that called? Yeah, push away surrounding targets. It would have been nice if you can increase that effect. Maybe if it was classified as knockback, and that means the battery, for example, could have an innate advantage for those kinds of scenarios. In the very late game, if we can compare Rupture with Deflagration, obviously both of them work and trigger, but Deflagration remains stronger in the early to mid game as it scales off your own burn damage, I mean ignites. So the only way to increase the Deflagration potency is by increasing your ignite damage. However, Rupture scales and triggers off from the maximum hull of the enemies, and the maximum hull of the enemies obviously scales and increases the longer you survive. So potentially for the very late game, Rupture is the most powerful mod, and that is something to keep in mind when you have a build that takes hidden power, because once you take hidden power, as it's been recently explained to me, once you acquire hidden power, both Warpath, as far as the rate of fire is concerned, both Warpath and Rupture no longer trigger when you have hidden power. It's not the case for Overseer, obviously. They both work when you go to Overseer, but when you have a build that uses hidden power, only the Deflagration effect works, no the Rupture. So actually, we are potentially wanting to get a Rancor for the one plating and 5% hull, but we also want Leaf on the Wind, so start with that one. This is forming to be a pretty solid build, no surprises there. Just I never considered making a build out of this. So I guess then at the end of the video I will include if it all goes away. If it all goes well, and if I can make it to a more reasonable way, the likes of like 300 plus, I will upload this with the build list like I usually do at the end. I'll also post in the description, I'll post a link with the chapter where the build starts. So as the game goes on, I have to be more thoughtful and more selective of the mine spam. Rebuke actually, yes. Let's talk about Rebuke versus Channeling. Both opposite modes. Obviously taking both of them is the best case scenario here. But if you had to pick just one out of the two, Rebuke gives 110% extra armor stack duration versus Channeling, which only gives 20%. The other effects of Channeling, extra shield power or regeneration, neither of those are important to us or even affect us here. And by us I mean me, and by me I mean the Spectre. Oh, let's not forget. Let me not forget to take deflagration. The whole point of the video. Deflagration, I meant deflagration in efforts to get Deflaginate, because we already got terminate. I sometimes wonder what triggers those celestials to spawn all the bombs in the middle of the script. Sometimes they spawn all the bombs right at the center, and I wonder if this is a scripted attack that has a random chance to trigger, or is there something that actually, is there a mechanic or some sort of an exploit that happens, some interaction that happens that triggers that kind of behavior. So I don't see any benefit that the enemy might have when it triggers the attack in such a way. The only thing I can come up to justify my thoughts of being a scripted attack is if you're running like a fortress build with lots of guardians and lots of turrets, and they usually clump up all in the middle. Or if you have like maybe what other kind of build? Basically a build that lets you stay in the middle all the time. Finally, burnout reactors. Let's see what we get from it. As far as the build is concerned, 30% assembly speed, perfect. 30% construct rate of fire, rotation and orbit speed, perfect. Self-destruction becomes burn damage, great. Construct rate of fire increases as their health decreases up to 50% total, and constructs take health damage. Now, the health damage per second is quite significant, which means the mines are not able to survive long enough as currently. However, if this is an architect build, this is almost irrelevant because the mines keep getting stronger and stronger as far as their health is concerned, as you accumulate more evolutionary niches. So let's see. The base mine, 25 health, and health modifier 155%, so basically you get like a 40 health mine divided by 8 damage per second plus the regular 2. Basically 4 or 5 seconds, no longer. Let's see, 12 per second, 14. Also it gains a ramping. Interesting, the damage is ramping up. I'm not going to lie, if this wasn't the Spectre, this wave is going to, or this wave was going to be a very precarious one. Oh, come on. Do I have leaf? I do have the leaf, but it zero effect. Oh, come on. Honestly, probably the safest thing I could have done is just get into it directly and avoid any unnecessary scenarios. Come on. Off with you. So the setups are definitely an issue late game as they move quicker and quicker. So I think that's about it as far as our firepower goes, besides stacking double taps, next thing I would probably want to get for defense are most likely turrets. The turrets are going to help protect you from bullet hell scenarios. However, the turrets are a target for enemies, so you have to think about this as well. Oh, I forgot, actually. This is something to keep in mind. When you got power inversion in blink, the push away is actually supposed to become a pull. So when you blink into projectiles, you're actually going to pull them. So I have to be mindful about this. Retribution, yeah, I mean, not really necessary, but I guess it's an extension for the very late game. Bravado, 10% base stats, so that's 10 extra hull. You'll get to 170, which still isn't enough to do the conversion. I'd really want to get the conversion going. That would be like 6 extra hull. What else could be done? I could get flash shielding and then conversion, but that will be 3 points wasted. Ah! Purge, obviously! Deflagration. How did I forget that? I think one of the best, at least to me, one of my favorite aspects about charge mind builds is just the amount of super modes you are able to get. That take damage. I thought the leaf on the wind is at its full effect currently. Let's see. How can I get the conversion without taking flash shield? Because when you reduce the total shield value by 40%, and that means the bonus is going to be 40 instead of 60, which still 40 is better than nothing. So much investment. The only reason I'm saying all this is because conversion occurs is dynamic. Like if you take, at least I think so, if your shield is smaller and then you take conversion, the shield becomes even smaller, but if then you take afterwards you take mods that make the shield get bigger than your hull, then I think the conversion effect swaps. Actually, I'm not sure how it works. I wonder if someone could enlighten the situation. And there it is. Deflaginate. That means there's no stopping us now. Got the blessing. I think a fine addition to your code, the Deflaginate code, you will find a good membership with the Sawdust guy, who always comes around on the lives. Should I say in the premiere of the episodes? Thinking about it, power inversion with blink, that made me cringe so hard when I realized what I did. I don't think it pulls the projector out. Nah, I don't think it doesn't. Let's focus more. Oh, come on. Let it not end like this. Please. If that jug dies though, that will be some nice area damage. Come on, Juggy boy. Pop, 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 come on, Juggy. Yeah. Oh, that was so sublime moments. Novadrift sublime moments. Boom. Oh! That last phase, when the Warbringer has only one segment. Come on. Did I get Rancor? I should probably get Rancor for that extra 7 hull. If I get Bravado, I'll most likely... No, I'll still be just a stretch off of getting the conversion going. So I think flash shielding is the only way. Oh, actually, the radius mod could do it with less penalty and for the same cost. 2 mods. Yeah, that could work. Oh, that was so fortunate to have all the mines out. Oh, come on. Not those guys. Ne, please. Fail. Anyway, I'll upload the build regardless, and I will put the build list, like the desired build list as well. Thanks for watching. Oh, actually, I think there could be one blooper.